Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is another video about the development of my personal project, codenamed Crystallis. In the last video, I've introduced the protagonist of the story, Scott, and showcased his visual assets. Today I can finally show the first gameplay implementation progress I've made since then. So without too much talk, let's dive in. First of all, as you can see, there's a minimal HUD already. It works very much like in Dark Souls games. Right now, you can see the 3 bars, health, mana, and energy, with a 4th bar being inactive and invisible for now. Its use will be announced in later videos. All bars work properly and reflect character's current state. Health can already be decreased through fall damage, and energy is being used for pretty much everything beyond basic walking and jogging. Also, as you can see, for now I've assembled a very simple, bare-bones testing room. Several next videos will use this test room, as well as some other additional ones for demonstration. But at some point, as visuals are being developed for the actual game areas, I'll be able to show those too. Going further, right now there's no combat stuff, as it requires separate implementation and will be the topic of the separate video. Instead, today, we're covering the basic platforming mechanics. As of now, Scott has basic idle loop implemented, with several dedicated animations for so-called annoyed state, randomly playing when player doesn't input anything for about 10 seconds. Next, Scott can already enter the combat mode, as seen by the test gloves appearing and disappearing. Combat mode disables most of the platforming mechanics, and instead will allow more agility in combat-related scenarios. Right now it's just activation and deactivation, with idle armed stance. The rest is still being actively developed, so expect to see more of it in later videos. Furthermore, a full range movement is also implemented. Scott can walk, jog, and even sprint. Walking and jogging are basic stuff, using interpolation based on players' input, for instance from analog gamepad sticks. On the other hand, sprinting is designed to be a much more impactful feature than just basic running like in your typical Dark Souls game. Instead, it is a Metroid-like special ability, very much like the speed booster. It doesn't have any unique sound or visual effects attached to it right now, as it's still being worked on. As a platforming-centric feature, sprinting will only be exclusive to unarmed mode, and accessible while weapon stance is active, as a gameplay mechanic. Sprinting has initial energy price to activate, and then consumes a stable amount of energy per second while active, reaching 0 energy, while sprinting will also forcefully deactivate it. Next, we have jumps. These were designed off Vagrant Story, rather than Dark Souls, and for those who played those games, I think you can see why. Every jump consumes fixed amount of energy, and is only possible while character has sufficient amount of it. Aside from normal jump, Scott will, at some point in the final game, acquire an air jump ability, which works as a mix of Dante's air jump in Devil May Cry 3 and Samus screw attack in Metroid, and consumes additional energy, more than a normal jump, and it will also be exclusive for platforming mode, allowing access to previously unreachable areas, and being helpful in solving tougher platforming challenges. It will be an unlockable ability, meaning Scott will initially be unable to use it when the game starts. Presently, no visual effects are implemented, although sound effects have already been added, as you can hear. Air jump, unlike normal jumps, is only accessible in unarmed mode, which makes a crucial tactical ability that needs to be pre-planned when combat is involved. Next, we have another ability called Air Dash, which is exactly what it sounds like. It allows to quickly cover the aerial distance by dashing through the air at straight lines, very much like Dante's air trick move from Devil May Cry 3. It's designed as a strategic move with multiple use cases. On one hand, it can be used across wide gaps in the floor, avoiding falling down into abyss, but on the other hand, it can be used to reposition yourself on the battlefield or outright escape from the enemy's reach. Much like ground and air jumps, activating this ability costs a certain amount of energy, and is only usable if there's enough energy to begin with. It is also another unlockable ability, initially locked and inaccessible to Scott until later in the game. It can be paired together with air jumps to achieve even higher reach in platforming challenges. Also, like air jumps, it is only accessible in unarmed mode, making it another tactically crucial ability. Yet another special platforming ability. Scott will acquire ledge climbing ability at some point in the game. It will allow to grab specific platform edges, followed by climbing up on them. It is, again, a platforming-centric ability, as it will be impossible to use in combat mode, for pretty much understandable reasons. Now, unlike in other games that have similar mechanics, hanging on the platform edges in this case consumes certain amount of energy over time, just like other abilities, which eliminates the possibility of abusing it over long periods of time, deactivating as soon as energy runs out, making character fall off the ledge before it can perform the climb up. However, if the climb up successfully starts, then the energy drain will stop. I will also tease another special ability here, without really revealing it. Let's just say it will make both air jumps and air dashes obsolete once it's eventually obtained in the game, which is why it will be an optional challenge to discover and obtain it, becoming a powerful reward worth of the work to be put into obtaining it. This ability will also serve as a great testing tool while the game is being developed, allowing to move through the room much more freely. Mana as a resource can't be actively used right now, as there's still no magic implemented at the moment in the game. But as you can see, all bars are being restored gradually while character isn't actively using any abilities. Also, much like in Vagrant Story, character restores different amount of resources in unarmed and combat modes. Combat mode is supposed to put additional strain on the character, making him restore himself almost twice as long, which is a deliberate design choice that will facilitate tactical thinking during gameplay. At this point, death as a gameplay mechanic is not yet implemented, by the way, but it should be noted that death is going to work very differently from Dark Souls here. People are so used to "you died" screens, followed by respawns at save points, that they really forget most classic games always had actual game over scenarios, which is something I'm going for in this project. Dying will actually result in game over, at which point player will have to either load an earlier created save file or start from the beginning in case no save was made. I'm deliberately going for the more challenging gameplay concept here, while also trying to bring a classic look and feel of role-playing games. For now, that's about all the progress I've made with the development. It's a humble start, which doesn't really make the gameplay stand out as something unique for now, but every project has to start somewhere, and basics are for each project, for the most part, always simple and humble. And next time, we'll explore the technical intricacies of game room and game area divisions, seeing how room and area transitions work, and checking out how it works under the hood in details. This is it for this video. If you like what you see, feel free to like and subscribe if you still haven't. Your comments and questions are also appreciated, both here and in my Discord server, a link to which is in the channel's description. Thank you for watching, and until next time.